OK/X/ I don't come here often, really at all. I figure 95% of the shit that I've seen is bullshit, so I've kept to /V/mostly, but something happened and I need some answers. I'm not going to green text this because it's going to be annoying as hell to write, but take my word on this, I don't frequent /X/ and I do not, or at least didn't believe in this shit. I don't even know what to call or describe what I saw, but that's why I'm here. I'm from Ireland and this shit happened in the woods near my house. It's messing with me because these woods are so frigging close to my house. It's maybe a 5-minute walk away and you're there. There was a load of history about the woods too, but nothing about what I saw. The history is that way back when the British were taking Ireland, a bunch of people buried themselves into this old tower in the woods to get away from them, but the Brits just surrounded the tower and let them starve inside. Gruesome shit. Sorry if I'm not describing it really well, but I'm generally not good at telling stories. But back to the story. So there's this place in the woods that we like to hang out by, that's called Lover's Leap. It's a cliff facing a river and a load of lush, green fields. It's beautiful. We've been there so many frigging times and nothing strange has happened at all. Last weekend we decided to go camping there. Our exams are starting soon and it's our last chance to get together and have a good piss up. So 7 of us go, 4 lads and 2 girls and myself. We bring 3 tents, one of them are those big frigging 10 people tents where we generally do most of our drinking and banter. I brought my own 2-person tent, which is shitty and it's got holes in it, so if we didn't get good weather that day I'd basically be screwed, and Jason brought his own tent too. So we get there midway through the day and it's a really frigging nice day. We are having a good time, but David gets a phone call from his mother saying that she needs a lift to her sister's house, so he has to go, and that leaves us with 6. Now we're after a few drinks and getting numb drunk, not too bad, but laughing fairly loudly. Our laughing is kind of echoing out over the side of the cliff. People here and there are walking their dogs down on the opposite side of the river and we start messing with them, flashing our ass and all that as they walk by. Being stupid. But the banter kind of calms down as Sarah and Jason go to get some wood for a fire. We all know that they've really gone off to eat face, so we joke about that for a little bit, but Philip is staring out across the river to a group of trees. I wouldn't call it a forest, it's like along this path where people walk their dogs. Terry's a small forest and it opens up into those green fields I was talking about. So I look at Philip kind of like, smiles and nods forward, like for me to look where he's looking, and says in a low voice as if he's worried whoever that is like a frigging mile away, he's going to hear us. Is somebody watching us from across the river? I thought he was messing though, so I played along, because Rebecca turns her head and is like, what? That's not funny. Seriously, is there? And I think he's just trying to mess with her, so I'm saying stuff like, oh yeah. He's wearing a trench coat. Are those binoculars? But when I say them, Philip is just like, no he's not. Look over there, by that tree that kind of slits into 2. So I realize he's not kidding and I look towards it. It sent chills down my frigging back, I swear. I couldn't even see it that well, I'm getting the slightly blurred vision from the drink, but I can still see this thing. He's standing like, halfway behind the tree, almost upright, but its upper body is kind of tilted at an angle so he can look out from behind the tree. Now, I don't like creepy shit. Like I said, I generally think /X/ is just all about horror stories and getting your jimmies rustled, so I stay away for the most part. I've seen supernatural shit here and there, but so has everyone. It's nothing much worth quoting. So when I see this guy just standing alone in the woods, I get chills. It gets a prompt what the hell? From me, and Rebecca comes over my shoulder, like looking out behind me as if I'm going to protect her or something, and says, where? And Philip points. As soon as he points, this guy just darts, but it felt more like an animal. Like, you know when a cat is watching something for a while but then gets scared and just launches itself away. It was like that. You could barely even see it leave, it just turned and was gone. Rebecca says Terry's nothing there, laughs and calls us dicks for screwing with her. I turn to look at Philip and he is not frigging smiling anymore. He's lost a bit of color and I'm pretty sure I have too. But I'm just reassuring myself that it was probably just an animal and got spooked. It couldn't have been a man anyway, the way it just ran. The eyes were off too, I couldn't tell what it was though at the time. Anyway, everyone else's buzz eventually brings me back into spirits. Philip is still a bit off but he's joining in too. Jason and Sarah come back and they've got the biggest smiles on their faces, so I'm pretty sure they'll be sleeping in the same tent tonight. I stopped drinking though, you know when you know some shit is going to happen on a night out and you want to be more aware in case it does happen? But John is getting absolutely hammered. By 8 he's basically paralytic and slurring his words and shit. Jason and Sarah are all up in each other and Philip seems to have the opposite idea as I do, trying to drink what he saw away. Then David gets back and he's exhausted, he's been running, but he starts laughing and calls us a shower of cunts. We're all kind of looking at him like what the hell? And he keeps saying to stop playing dumb. He knows it was us and we generally don't know what he's talking about. We keep asking and he keeps telling us you know what you frigging did. He's going through our bags like he's looking for something. Philip eventually gets him to talk by saying that he was too drunk to get up and didn't know what happened. He tells us that one of these smart asses was in a costume and scared the shit out of him on the path back. I get that chill of frigging terror through me again and look straight at Philip, who looks back at me and shakes his head, as if not to say anything. I don't get why, he was probably worried about ruining the buzz or something, but I keep quiet and question further. He said that he was walking down the path that we always used and there was somebody standing behind a tree, but it wasn't looking at him, it was facing away from him, kind of shivering, like somebody was trying to mimic the Grudge girl or something. He calls out to it and says stop messing around, I'm not in the mood. But the thing just doesn't move. Stays standing there, but the twitching seems to calm down and almost stop. So he tries to act not scared and says whatever, I'm going back and getting screwed up. Nice try though. He didn't say all this originally, I got the full story multiple times in the tents later that night, so he says as he's walking, this thing is keeping up with him, he can hear the footsteps but every time he turns around this thing is just looking at it, half of it behind a tree, but its back is turned. He's trying to act the hard man but he's walking faster and he knows it. What makes him run though is when he turns around the last time and this thing is like, at a tree right next to the path, maybe 5 feet from him and it's turned around now, and he couldn't see much of the face, there was long greasy hair kind of covering the face, but the eyes were off. He described it though and it sounded like whatever he saw would describe what I had seen. He said the eyes were like reversed, like the part of your eyes that were supposed to be white were black, and where it was meant to be black, it was white, but more like the eyes were hollowed with this white dot in them. I got too freaked out and had to tell him what we saw earlier and everything. At first he thought we were kidding but we let him check our bags and he could tell by the look on my face that we're not kidding. The girls are getting scared and Jason is only being informed as to everything that happened. He gets panicked and is like, did any of you come out and try to spy on us when we were shifting? And we said no. A whole hail of this isn't funny at all happened. Him and Sarah are fighting over each other to tell us that while they were in the woods that somebody was spying on them, but Jason shouted to piss off and it disappeared, slowly though. Like it was limping, but different. Like it was walking through thick snow. We're all getting freaked out now and it's getting dark. We all want to leave but none of us want to go through the woods at this time, so we start the fire and stay close to it. Nobody is in the mood for drinking anymore, even though most of it is gone anyway. Everyone seems pretty sobered up except for John, who is just absolutely drunk, telling everybody that everything is fine, Carrie's nothing there and we're all a bunch of spastics. He's the worst when he's drunk, like a broken record. It was bad though. It was like as it got darker, any chance we had of getting out of the woods at night was gone and the dark was heavy as hell. It was like fog, the light just wasn't reaching as far as it should have and the air was clammy as hell. The worst was the noise though. There was nothing. The only thing we could hear over the fire was the river running and a branch breaking from a tree here and there. The worst was that we all were pretty quiet too. Some of it was fear, But a lot of it, at least for me, was just listening. Trying to hear if there was anything in the woods. For ages though it was nothing, and some of the lads would fire a joke off here and there trying to lighten the mood and bring the crack back. Eventually Jason and Sarah decided they'd just retire early, for obvious reasons. John passed out not long after that, so we put him to bed and the rest of us went to bed after that. I managed to get Rebecca into my tent, my excuse being that it would be good to have 2 people in each tent, just in case. David argued that 4 of us in the big tent would be a better idea, but I had my own motives with Rebecca, so I managed to convince him. I won't go into details, but things went off with me and Rebecca. I played the protective card and it worked. So we're moving around in the tent and the fabric of our sleeping bags is making a good bit of noise as we're moving. In fact, I'm pretty sure if anybody is awake that they can definitely hear what's going on, and I'm also pretty sure that if we stopped making noise, we'd be able to hear Jason and Sarah going at it too. Sorry if this is long-winded, by the way. It only happened last weekend and I remember it so vividly, and I'm putting in all the details just in case it attributes to this shit. Anyway, we stopped because I think I hear a noise and there is complete silence, because Jason told me later that he heard the same thing and they stopped too. I kept Rebecca quiet and listened for maybe 40 seconds. She whispers that stupid saying it's not funny anymore and I shake my head to tell her to stop talking. Eventually I hear a footstep. I'm not sure if somebody stepped out to go to the bathroom, so I text David and Jason to ask. I've seen enough horror movies to know that you don't make a scene of yourself, so my phone didn't even have vibrate when I texted and I hid the light underneath my sleeping bag. Got 2 knocks back. Hear a few more footsteps. It sounds like whoever it is just lingering around our campsite, not getting close to any of the tents, like staying at a radius, is the best way I can describe it. It's just a question now about who will have the balls to speak up first. Eventually Jason shouts out from his tent when he hears the footsteps kind of get around to his side of the site. Piss off, and we hear the footsteps darting off into the woods, and I shit you not, the most terrifying skreek I've ever heard in my life. It was like a woman screaming and an animal crying at the same time. Like, there were 2 voices from one. I got too freaked out and the fear outdid my boner, so I called everyone to get into the same 10-man tent. There wasn't much arguments. When we get out though, I get this smell. At first I think it might be the fire dying out, or that somebody might have put some metal into the fire while we were sitting around it, but I get this distinct smell of blood. The taste on my tongue was like when you chew on the zipper of a hoodie or something. Everyone smells it, but we disregarded it at the time.
IN before Goatman.
It didn't look anything like a goat. So we're sitting in this tent around in a circle, like a smaller circle around the fire. John is wrecked tired, but can't get to sleep with all of us talking. He was only woken by the skreek but couldn't remember it, but everyone else was awake and terrified. We were all talking about it and David was going into more detail about what he saw on the path to the camp. The girls are terrified, Sarah starts crying and Jason and Rebecca start comforting her. David is almost completely sober and I'm the next closest to it. Philip is so frigging terrified and saying nothing, and nobody is sitting with their back to the door thing of the tent. Some of us are dealing with it by texting people to find out if they're still awake, seeking comfort in the fact that there are other people that are awake and safe, that they know what's going on in case we all frigging disappear. At about 3 a.m. we hear it again. It's walking around the tents again, but it's closer now and that smell of blood is stronger. It's like stale blood though, more like a copper coin or something X10, but I figured that whatever this thing was, it was probably after blood. It's also making noise now. It's the freakiest thing. It was like it was trying to pronounce words but it was choking at the same time. Like it was struggling to speak or it was practicing without wanting to be heard. We're all just sat there in silence listening to this shit, whispering what the hell, over and over. We all keep looking at Jason though to shout at it again and get it to go the hell away, but he's just as scared as we are. Eventually I do it, but I don't say anything, I just shout loudly and I hear it like, jolt, like it was ready to run away, but then it stopped and it shouted back, and I swear, it'll be burned into my brain for the rest of my life. It shouted, "Piss off," back, like in the same pitch as Jason did, but not. It was in two voices again, but it was a voice like Jason's, kind of. It's hard to describe it. The space between each word was like it was taking a quick breath between them, and at the end of each word it rasped. Then it started screaming off. Off. Piss off. Off. Over and over again, like a cat coughing up a spitball or something. I was so frigging terrified. The fact that it responded to me shot me with fear. If we would have had to run right there, I wouldn't have been able to. But it got worse. David took his flashlight, and shone it towards where it sounded like the noise was coming from, and we saw the shape of it outside the tent. It looked like a person, but it was hunched over, like it was heaving, and its fingers were pointed. I don't know if they were claws or just sharp nails. I only saw the silhouette or whatever it was. Just the faint shape of it through the fabric, but that image is burned into my head too. The long hair looked like a hood or something in the silhouette, but this frigging thing got startled from the light, and let out this screech, takes a step back as if it's ready to run away, and just lunges its hand towards the tent. You can hear the loud thud from the fabric, and it bends inwards. Everyone screams and jumps to the other side of the tent. Rebecca is gripping my arm so frigging hard, I still have her nail marks on my arm. Sorry. In student housing, so the internet is sketchy as shit. So anyway, David dropped the torch, and it was just shining into one of the sleeping bags, so it's only kind of light in the tent, but we can't see outside the tent again. We're pretty sure it's gone though, because that smell of blood has kind of gone where it was really strong before. We couldn't hear it dart off with the screaming, but we were fairly sure the way it reacted, it was like spooked. The way it acted, it was like a frigging animal, the way it stalked around us, but it could talk. Even though whatever was talking couldn't have frigging been human, it looked like one and spoke. Ish. I'm fairly sure if any of you have any idea about what it is, you'll know now, but I'll keep going anyway. The only other time we got contact with it was when it was about 6 a.m. The sun was coming up enough that there was light outside again. We packed up quickly as hell, didn't even pack the tents properly, just pulled all the shit out, left the pegs there and rolled up the tents. I carried mine in my hands, and we're making our way down the path fast as hell. It was still pretty dark, but there was enough light that we could see where we were going, and we're pegging it, not running, but a real fast walk. People aren't even looking back, they're so terrified. I looked back once we were getting close to the edge of the woods, not far away from where we parked the cars, and I swear I saw it. It was close too, and it looked like Jason. Not totally like Jason, its eyes were terrifying, like if any of you are gamers, imagine Nightingale armor from Skyrim, just dark around the eyes and a white dot in the middle, but it was wearing jeans and a hoodie like Jason, and the hair wasn't long anymore. The best way I could describe it is like if you described a Pokémon to somebody in detail and asked them to draw it, they would draw something like it, but it wouldn't be the same. That would be the comparison. I ran without saying anything, but people were scared enough to run with me. We made it to the cars and were gone. And that's basically it. Everyone has been in contact a lot just to make sure everyone is fine. None of us have seen it since, and none of us are ever going back to those woods. If anybody can give me any information, I'd be massively appreciated.
In some parts of County Down, the Púca is manifested as a short, disfigured goblin who demands a share of the harvest. In County Laois, it appears as a monstrous bogeyman, while in Waterford and Wexford, the Púca appears as an eagle with a huge wingspan, and in Roscommon, as a black goat.
The Púca is primarily a creature of Celtic folklore. Considered to be bringers both of good and bad fortune, they could help or hinder rural and marine communities. Púca can have dark or white fur or hair. The creatures were said to be shape changers, which could take the appearance of horses, goats, cats, dogs, and hares. They may also take a human form, which includes various animal features, such as ears or a tail.
Reading this shit about the Púca, it sounds pretty spot on, only it was definitely a humanoid and didn't look anything like a goat. How close that map is though is creeping me out. I have to go on a 2-hour trip and I won't be here for a while. I'm fairly certain this thread will be gone by the time I get back, but thanks for the help. So I'm back and glad to see this thread still exists somewhat. Been doing research on this and it looks like the Púca fits the description pretty well. A few of you mentioned skinwalkers, and it seems like it's the same thing, just we call it something different in Ireland. I spoke to my grandmother yesterday about it. I didn't say that I'd seen anything, just asked her what she knew about it, and she flat out believes they exist. Didn't mention anything about them hurting people though, just that they're just trouble and bad luck. She's told me to talk to this guy at the old library here, so I'm going to see if he's around today and ask about it. I'll let you know what I find out. I checked out those skinwalker stories here too, and it seems a bit different. They seem to copy the image of people perfectly, but what I saw was like a bad copy, and those eyes were terrifying.